are back with another recap edition of the Influential Personal Brand Podcast. Today, we are breaking down the interview with our new friend, Vanessa Van Edwards, who we shared the stage with at the Global Leadership Summit, which was awesome. And I'm actually really curious to hear AJ's top 3 takeaways because this was, really into the science of delivery, I feel like, in presentation mechanics. So why don't you kick us off?
Well, my first feedback was literally like the first part of the interview. She talks about her research in her book, Captivate Sales, in which she said that hand gestures show trust. I was like, well, Rory Vaden is the most trustworthy person on the planet. This is great news for you. There is a future. There's a future for you.
As a speaker, I can do it. I could do it. I use a lot of gestures.
I was literally laughing out loud because just about after every podcast recap, I'm like, what is with you and the hand gestures? And then I realized I do the same thing. Mine are all just like below for where you guys can see. But Rory's like literally hands coming all the places all the time. And I'm like, wow, you've got a lot of trust going for you then.
Apparently. The other thing, you always make fun of me for my facial expressions.
Exaggerated those are different because no, it's not the exaggerated ones. Those are entertaining. It's the ones Rory's facial expressions are
she says
very expressive.
I look very negative when my neutral looks very negative.
It's true. So anyways, I just thought that was really fascinating. And the fact that they actually watched every single TED Talk that was released in 2010 and compared all these things. And I really appreciate the data that goes into some of these findings, because if you just listen to them without, the data-driven background, you're like, what? But I thought it was really fascinating and really interesting in terms of just like the fact that you use your hands shows like the passion and emotional involvement, but then the cues that it relates back to the audience of, simply saying, hey, there are 3 things that we're going to discuss in this recap today. It's like you make this
3
visual connection with the verbal conversation that there are 3 things. And I thought that was really fascinating and just really a great reminder of like, people don't just listen with their ears, right? They listen with their eyes. And I loved that whole concept. So that was my first takeaway, but mostly that you use so many. I'm sure Rory was just sitting there going, yep. So it was good.
I thought the whole way that she said that your gestures are basically a second talk track.
Yeah. What did she say? You've got 2, she said you have 2 different like content delivery.
Yeah, 2 scripts. It's like the words out of your mouth and then your gestures are like a whole second one. So I love that. And then the other thing is I was so excited, and Vanessa and I nerded out after the interview was over because y'all, I did this. This was how I got started in the World Championship of Public Speaking for Toastmasters. I took 20 years of championship speeches, which was 200 speeches, analyzed them, graphed them, dissected them. In fact, what was it? I don't know if we've shared this story. We weren't even dating a year. So, it was like 6 months in, maybe. So on my birthday, the first year that AJ and I were dating, what did you tell me? We could do anything I wanted?
Anything you wanted.
She told me we could do anything I wanted on my birthday.
Because we were also living long distance. And so I was with you on your birthday. I'm like, whatever you want to do, I'm game.
And so I said, we're going to spend the whole day watching world championship speeches from all the Toastmaster competitions. And you were such a trooper, babe.
I was, but I will tell you, that's the last time that I've ever said whatever you want. No, it was mostly pretty good. But, it's like we were like watching videos from like the late 70s and early 80s at the time. And I'm like, do we really have to go 20 years
Mark
back?
Brown, that was the day you fell in love with Mark Brown as a person from his speech.
This is true.
But so anyways, just for you, like the takeaway for me was this reminder that there is a science to this, and all the things that we teach at World Class Presentation Craft are based on a science, a study, the research of these kinds of things. And if you've either been to that event or you're like me and you sort of nerd out about those things, I was just excited because Vanessa seems like another great resource for people that really love the science part of, and here I am using my hands. I can't stop it. I can't stop it. The hands, they just go.
Gosh.
They just go. So yeah, so that was gestures. What was your second takeaway?
My second one was really, I just was so thoroughly fascinated around this whole concept of how do you make a TED Talk go viral? And again, what I love so much about all of this is that it's not just ideas, right? This is like, it's very data driven, it's data specific, it's research. And I love that. And I think that, to me, it goes back to one of the recent interviews we had with Jason Dorsey around like information and data is your new competitive advantage. And same thing, we had another interview with AJ Yeager and Megan Cannell of just like, data matters, right? Those insights that you gather really matter. And talking about the titles. And so she was very specific in how she really wanted to create a title that was like a command statement that you are something, right? So her title of her TED Talk is You're Contagious. She talks a lot about how that's a little bit different right now during COVID.
Yeah, COVID. Yeah, that's a weird title.
But again, it's just like really putting thought and intention into what would people search? What would people be attracted to? How are people going to find me? And then I thought this was just so fascinating. And I've really never heard anyone talk about it the way that she did, is the intentionality put behind getting on people's playlists on YouTube. So just very definitive focus and intention on making sure that her YouTube strategy was intact, which will lead to my third point in a second. But just the whole concept of, there's a formula for making a TED Talk go viral that really has not as much to do with your TED Talk itself and what you do to make sure people see it.
Yeah, that thing about the YouTube playlist was cool because everyone wants to like reach out to the speaker, but she is like, I'm much more interested in reaching out to the person who has a playlist that nobody ever reaches out to, but they have like these really popular playlists.
Yeah.
That was super cool. Another tactical thing for me that was just a good reminder, which I actually never realized the brilliance of what TED did with the red circle. If they do this red circle, the speaking, the dot, and you have to stay within the dot. And normally when you take like presentation skills classes, they teach you to use the stage. We talk about that at presentation craft of different sections of the stage mean different things. But one of the big risks is that especially non-professional speakers or early speakers, they have this shifty stance where they're just always sort of like waffling back and forth and just wandering the stage, like meandering aimlessly. And it really takes away from the power of stand and deliver, which was like classic sort of like 1970s or 1960s. I think of like Mort Utley or Cavett Robert just standing there with a microphone and just like delivering. And that is one of the most tactical things you can do to enhance the power of your presentations, is to plant your feet solid, look people directly in the eye, and deliver a message, right? Not just wandering around because you heard, oh, you should use the stage, but locking your feet on those key moments and those key points. And that was just a good reminder for me to get back to the basics of like, yeah, I need to lock in place every once in a while.
But
so that
also,
was super tactical.
Same time, she talked about the importance of intentional gestures.
Yeah.
Not just, using hands for the sake of using hands, not knocking the microphone, but for the sake of like, where are you going to place these and what impact does that have? Same thing goes for using the stage.
Yeah. Like go to a location, plant, deliver, go to another location, plant, deliver. Don't just pace back and forth. Yeah. So that was really good. Good reminder.
I love that. So then my third and final point was just a great reminder again, which I just keep hearing more and more about this from so many people that we interview in the podcast, is like, get yourself on YouTube.
Yeah, that's my third one too.
And I just feel like this has been this recurring theme that you don't hear all the places, but we have heard it repeatedly over the last 12 months from all of our guests coming on of, YouTube is still a little bit the wild, wild west, right? You've got affordable advertising still on YouTube. You've got amazing search abilities on YouTube. You've got the ability to emotionally connect. It's all video driven. We already know the data around video and how that's going, specifically with the emerging generations, with Gen Z, and I can't even imagine the one after that, where video is the most intimate aspect. And I loved what she said. It's like, if you're selling a video course, then you should be on video selling your video course. And no better way to be on video than on YouTube. And just little things that you're like, innately, but you're like, oh, yes, duh. So those were just really great. But I mean, everyone who is listening, if you listen to this podcast on a recurring basis, then you have heard multiple people talk about the importance of YouTube and the growing importance of YouTube for a personal brand or for anyone. So I think this was just another, kind of like.
Yeah, I've never placed, I think I've missed the boat on YouTube, which I talked about.
Well, she says you have not.
Yeah, there's still time. But I just have never realized just the power, the magnitude of everything that YouTube is. And there were two things about YouTube, because this was my third takeaway too, that like YouTube is king. It's like king of the social medias other than podcasting. But I think number one is that YouTube, unlike the other social media platforms, the longer the video has been around, the more valuable it is. The
totally
more
opposite.
views, the opposite
totally
of Instagram
the opposite.
and Twitter and Facebook, which is constantly pushing stuff down in the feed, which is true about a blog and a website also. Because it's like everything Google, that's the case. It's like a fine wine. With age, it gets better. With all the other social platforms, older is gone. And then the other thing, remind me, I can't remember if this was recorded. Did we talk about what, the power of being in the living room and watching a video? Because you and I are watching the Mike Todd.
Yeah, and also we talked about the TV series, The Chosen.
And The Chosen. So
you've got this emerging kind of like thing
YouTube
happening
is
with
TV.
It is, And we link it to our TV, and that's what we watch.
And you and I are literally sitting down to watch church, to watch sermons, to watch TV shows.
That is where we watch most of our church sermons, specifically this year.
On the couch.
That is, I mean,
and sometimes in your bedroom, right? Like, and that is
we don't,
so
but
intimate.
People do. And I just think that's really a great reminder of like, this literally is where people are watching TV series, they're watching sermon series. So why wouldn't they also be getting all their content there? And the fact is they are, but you just don't hear a ton of people talking about it, but you're going to.
Yeah. And we're doing it. We're ramping up. We recorded our first set of YouTube ads last week. They're not live yet, but we're going to be running those, and we'll report back to you on how those work. But anyways, Vanessa Van Edwards, my fellow speaking research nerd, I'm so glad to have met you.
Vanessa, you have no idea what you have created over here with these fans.
Yes, and now I am empowered. I'm empowered for full hand gestures with meaning. But so anyways, check out the interview. Thank you for being here. We hope you get in practical takeaways. That's what we're aspiring to do. We're grateful for you. Have a great one. We'll catch you next time on The Influential Personal Brand.